All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're taking a close look at the latest enrollment numbers from the Waco Independent School District. We're going to break down all the key changes to give you a really clear picture of what's going on.
So what's the real story behind all these numbers? Here's how we're going to tackle it. We'll start with the big picture. Then we'll zoom in on specific programs and school levels to see what's really driving the changes. And then we'll pull it all together at the end to figure out what this means for the district moving forward.
First things first, let's get to the number you've probably been waiting for. What's the top-line, headline change in the district's total student population?
There it is. The total student enrollment for Waco ISD is down by 466 students compared to last year. Now, that's the big, flashy number. But honestly, the real story, the one that actually matters for planning and resources, is way more complicated than just that.
Okay, so when you look at this breakdown, things get really interesting. You see these trends just going in completely opposite directions. Yeah, total enrollment is down, but look at special education, it's up by 250 students. Now that's a huge deal because it means there's a growing need for specialized staff and resources even while the overall district is shrinking. At the same time, you see this big drop in limited English proficient students, which tells us the whole demographic makeup of the district is really shifting right now.
All right, let's peel that back another layer because we can see these shifts in even more detail. Let's look at exactly which specific programs are growing and which ones are shrinking. So on the growth side, that 250 student jump in special education, that is absolutely the dominant story here. It has huge implications for budgeting and staffing. But we're also seeing a really big increase in students in the dyslexia program, plus a noticeable rise in immigrant students. It all paints a picture of a district that's serving students with increasingly diverse and specialized needs.
Now on the flip side, you've got these declines. The drop in LEP students is the biggest one for sure. But, those dips in pre-K and ninth grade are really telling. Think about it. Those are the main entry points for elementary and high school. When you see numbers falling there, it's a pretty strong signal about what future enrollment might look like, and it's something the district definitely has to keep a close eye on.
Okay, let's shift over to the high school level, because I'm telling you the district-wide numbers just do not tell the full story. What's happening on these campuses is really a tale of two completely different realities.
I mean, just look at this. The contrast could not be more stark. University High is basically holding steady, right? But Waco High, they are facing a major enrollment drop of 170 students. This isn't just a small dip, it's a huge shift. And the big question this raises is why? What's going on that could cause such a massive difference between the district's two main high schools?
All right, let's move on to the middle schools. This is where things get really fascinating because we see this mix of growth and decline. And more importantly, we see changes that were driven not by just natural population shifts, but by specific, intentional district policies.
So the data shows two schools are growing, Tennyson and Cesar Chavez, while G.W. Carver saw a pretty big drop. But what's the story behind that growth, especially that solid jump at Cesar Chavez? Well, it's probably not what you think.
And here it is. This growth wasn't just a random fluctuation. Nope, it was a direct result of a strategic choice by the district to actually redraw the attendance boundaries. This is a perfect example of how an administrative decision can completely change the reality for a specific school.
But honestly, the most dramatic, the absolute biggest changes in the entire district are happening at the elementary school level. Some schools saw little shifts, but a few saw just massive swings in their student numbers.
First up, just take a look at Kendrick Elementary. They saw an unbelievable surge, adding 270 students in just 1 year. I mean, that's not just growth. That is a fundamental transformation of a campus, and it requires a huge operational response to handle.
And they weren't the only ones. South Waco Elementary also had a major increase, adding 121 new students to their campus. It's not quite as big as Kendrick's jump, but that's still a really significant number for any elementary school to absorb.
So what's the story here? Well, just like we saw with the middle school, this explosive growth didn't just happen by accident. It's directly tied to a huge district decision, the closure of Alta Vista Elementary. Its student population was then absorbed by these two schools, creating these massive enrollment spikes that are all about policy, not some sudden population boom.
And then, in sharp contrast to all that growth, you have Bells Hill Elementary, which saw the largest decrease of any elementary school, dropping by 64 students. So after digging through all this data from the big district-wide numbers all the way down to individual schools, what's the real story?
What are the big trends that we really need to wrap our heads around? Okay, let's just boil it all down. First, the district is shrinking overall. Second, inside that decline, there's a huge demographic shift happening, with a growing number of students who have more specialized needs. Third, the most extreme changes we're seeing aren't random at all. They are policy-driven hotspots created by school closures and rezoning. And finally, there is a clear and probably concerning split happening at the high school level. And all of this leaves the district with a really critical forward-looking challenge. For a district that's shrinking overall, the main job isn't just about managing decline. It's about solving a much harder puzzle. How do you reallocate your resources to support schools that are exploding with policy-driven growth, while at the very same time, other schools are seeing sharp drops? That balancing act is what will define the district's future.